Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Dawn Jarvis Show. Today, my special guest is Cecilia Harvey, and we are talking about leveraging the power of diversity and unlocking the opportunity it brings. Cecilia is a social anthropologist with a passion for all things people. She's a subject matter expert in equality, diversity, and inclusion, and through her company, Cultural Nexus, she strategically supports individuals and businesses alike. She has worked across many sectors and advises executive boards, HR, integrity and compliance, marketing and communications departments. Hi, Cecilia. It's lovely to
Hello,
see
Dawn.
you. How you doing?
I'm good, thank you. I'm very good, thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
Very, very, very welcome. It's a pleasure to have you. Cecilia and I met on a course around the topic that we're going to be talking about, actually. So really, really looking forward to hearing all about your thoughts about leveraging the power of diversity and cultural intelligence as well. But first of all, you've not always done this as a job. I just wondered how you got to where you are today.
So I started off, in fact, most of my career was as a PA, as a personal assistant, mainly for sort of board level members, CEOs, etc. And I think actually that probably gave me the bug a little bit to understanding different personalities, having a bird's eye view in terms of what was happening within the company, but also how those different elements worked together. And being a social anthropologist and always having been interested in people and interactions, it really stimulated me to sort of try and think, okay, but how can we work better together? How can we really get teams to work better, but not in a homogenous way, but by bringing in all those different perspectives and points of view and lived experiences, and really having teams which I feel give everyone the opportunity to bring something to the table.
Brilliant. That sounds wonderful. Really interested in how you jumped, segued, I think segued is nicer, from being a personal assistant to having your own business. Because I've interviewed people before who have done that, and I think it's a really powerful thing. And I think a lot of people would like to do that and see the potential to be able to do that.
Well, I mean, I guess I've always thought to myself, and actually even when I was a personal assistant, I thought, oh, I wonder whether I can sort of be a virtual PA and be my own boss and things like that. But actually, I think it's also opportunity and the right time. And it wasn't in that time of my life or my career. But actually, as a consultant, I think working for yourself means also that you're not just working for one industry. So I think when I was a consultant working for a particular industry, that's the only exposure to what ED&I challenges that particular industry has. And I'm not belittling that or sort of undermining that, but I think when to be able to be an individual that helps different industries with very particular challenges, I find really stimulating. But I think that jump I would say, is one of bravery. But it's also one of, if you get an opportunity to reinvent yourself, do so.
Absolutely.
And I guess that's what spurred me on.
Definitely. I think that's so true, and both about the diversity, ironically, of sort of the people you work with when you're working for yourself. Oh dear, got a bit of a frog in my throat, and also the bravery and taking the leap, really, to sort of like saying, oh, I can use my expertise and I can help lots of different people. And you talk about working with people. So how do you help the people that you work with? Because you work with lots of different organizations and lots of departments within organizations. What do you do with them?
I think the first point is listen, is rather ask a question and really listen with intent. I think still grouping people and companies in particular industries is important, but actually every organization has its own challenges. And it might well be that there's a challenge in a particular team, or it might be that the organization needs assistance in building the ED&I strategy, etc. So I guess I base it on three main things. One would be consultancy and advisory services, where I would, just initially have a mapping conversation and sort of scoping what is the challenge, what are we talking about here, and what level of support they need, and whether it touches on particular areas of D&I. Because I think one of the things that's quite scary about the topic, and I'm sure you might have encountered the same, is that people feel that it is this huge monstrosity of a topic, and it can feel quite intimidating, but it's really important to break it down so you can still make progress in D&I if you have one particular issue that you want to tackle at a time. You do not have to, take it all in, all at once and try and tackle it like that. The other thing I tend to do is workshops, and very often they're alongside other sort of learning paths, maybe for managers, or it might be for sort of whole company. But I think when you're talking about learning and sort of changing ways and behaviors, you really need to make sure that you have a variety of elements. And I think the workshops that I offer are interactive, and they're slightly different to sort of a classroom based experience. So that's some of the something else. And then I also support individuals one-to-one. I think that's also really important, whether it's a manager or whether it's an individual who wants to advance their role in D&I in the company. And I sort of advise them, and I'm a mentor throughout that journey. And I call it mentoring as opposed to coaching. Number one, I'm not a professional coach. And number two, I think it's very much a longer term journey, and it's not necessarily linked to a career path, but it's really linked to the core beliefs that person has in wanting to push and drive the agenda forward.
I love that. That's fantastic. Really, really good. Really good overview of your business. And I think so important, and both around the topic of diversity, inclusion and equity, and that it's part of the business, but it's like a silver thread that runs through it and incorporates many, many different things. And you could be helping boards, but you could be also helping individuals and team managers, and that's all part of the business, isn't it, really, whatever business that is. So we're talking about leveraging the power of diversity. And one of the things that we've spoken about is the power of different perspectives. Can you tell me a little bit more about that, Cecilia?
I sort of always try to depict it as a, I guess in a visual way. So if you have one point of view, and that could be one petal of a flower, and they're all exactly the same. I don't think maybe some flowers are, but I think in most cases, if you have flowers, the petals of those flowers are slightly different. Some might have a jagged edge, some might have a completely rounded edge, etc. And I think it's really important that in any conversation that you have in business, you have a variety of perspectives. I think homogeneity brings monotony, could also bring, a lack of inspiration. I think when you have different perspectives and you listen to different lived experiences, you can be inspired. And I think that's maybe why some of the research that comes from PwC or Boston Consultancy Group or McKinsey shows that diverse teams outperform non-diverse teams. And they're also more creative and innovative. And actually, if you think about it, why wouldn't you feel inspired by a diverse perspective? Because it may challenge you, and that's actually okay. That could be, but I think it also stimulates curiosity. And when you have that curiosity, you have momentum and you have action rather than a sort of flow along the same lines of thought, etc., etc. And sometimes you need that spark, and you need those perspectives to feed off each other to then maybe come to a different viewpoint that you never even had imagined. So I think it's sort of, it's like kinesis, isn't it? It's movement, it's action, it's something is happening when you have those different perspectives rather than sort of stagnate with one. if you see what
Yeah,
I mean.
I do see what you mean. I think, the research is really clear about, having diverse perspectives in any environment is productive, and valuable for all sorts of reasons. But can you think of reasons why people would be scared of that? Because, it's I suppose people fear change, don't they?
Mm.
They fear change. And I think one of the things that consultants, coaches, mentors, whatever, can help is sort of like talk about those fears and sort of like talk about the benefits, I guess. Would you agree?
Absolutely, absolutely. I think, you, in order to tackle something new, and as you rightly say, change, is intimidating, but I think change is also difficult. So I think the two things that I feel might help encourage people to take those leaps of of courage
Mhm,
is actually leaving your comfort zone is okay,
mhm,
and leaving where and feeling fearful or maybe uncomfortable when learning about something that you're not aware of or something that is different to you.
mhm,
That's okay. And what that means, it doesn't mean that you're erasing who you are or your beliefs or your sexual preferences or anything like that. It just means that you're opening yourself up to something other.
mhm,
And you're just listening, really, in essence. And I think what I try and create is those scenarios where people feel comfortable to listen
mhm.
and others feel comfortable to share. And so when you find those psychologically safe places, then I think people are happier to leave that comfort zone because they don't feel threatened.
Yeah.
And I think change can also feel threatening, and it takes time. So I also say patience with yourself, I
Mhm.
think, and patience with others is also really key.
And do you think you talk about unlearning, and what do you mean? What do you mean by that? Sort of what do people have to unlearn the things that they are now, or is it just being about being open to other things?
It's definitely just to be open about other things. And I think unlearning could be unlearning of a concept, unlearning of a behavior, unlearning of a spoken word. So when you're trying to be more inclusive and equitable, there may be some things that may be in your unconscious bias or in stereotypes that you might have, or things that you've picked up from the media, or just figures of speech that you have now learnt may cause offence or have a different connotation to what you know. Then it's about unlearning, so unteaching yourself to use that particular term and making a conscious effort to use something other. So I think it's definitely not impacting who you are. You don't need to change who you are, but I think if you are open to leaving that comfort zone and understanding how your behaviors, actions, words affect others, then it's and you've decided consciously that you want to make the effort to do so,
Mhm.
and that's the only requirement. But you will, still remain you. You will still have the same hobbies, the same preferences, and it won't change how good or bad you are at something. And I guess for the most important thing is here, it's not about finger pointing.
Mhm.
It's very introspective. This is why I think it's really important when I do one-to-one work with people that it's a sort of bringing out something and confidence in yourself, but also having the courage to look at yourself in the mirror a little bit. So it's very much the opposite of, oh, you thought that of that person, so you're not particularly nice, or you did this. It's very much, oh gosh, I didn't realize that,
Yeah.
I had that. It's very much that.
And it also helps with effectiveness, I think, both personally and professionally, doesn't it? Because sort of having the psychological safety to actually articulate what you may be feeling or thinking, the biases you may or may not hold, and how that fits into how you operate both personally and professionally.
Yeah,
I think it can be quite frightening, but it
yeah.
also can be quite empowering as well. Would you agree?
Yes, definitely. And I think going back to that element of leaving the comfort zone, it's okay if it's a little bit frightening.
Yeah.
And I think but the more you're able to do that, and the more you witness other people doing that, I think that's where the empowerment comes from. Because then you think, oh, look, nothing happened. I expressed my opinion. I was able to voice something, or I was able to disagree with something, or call someone out on it, and nothing happened. In fact, it's cleared the air, or we all benefited from a really interesting conversation. Or so I think as soon as you see the effects of those moments when you do take that leap, or you sort of step outside the comfort zone circle, then I think it becomes more natural.
Yeah.
And it becomes very empowering, as you say.
Yeah, and authentic as well, because I think people don't want to. I mean, there's lots of things about, so not too distant past, unconscious bias training was like mandatory in public sector. And I knew that from my time in that, and then it seems to have gone out of fashion. But the actual the effectiveness of it all has to be part of a holistic approach. I would have thought, and so to do something in isolation might not be as effective as sort of like looking at the whole thing around the culture of the organization, the values of particular people, and the values of an organization as well. And that sort of like links me into the course that we met on, sort of like talking about cultural intelligence. So which is really, really important. And I'd just like you to talk a little bit about cultural intelligence and the importance of it.
I just feel that when you are operating a business, both domestically and or internationally, and within your organization, you have different cultures and different backgrounds, let alone when then you interact with customers and collaborators and clients, etc. You can't really be blind to the fact that there are different things at play, different preferences, different rules, different etiquette, different types of respecting seniority. Is it what model is it? And I think those things really help. And we'll pick up the point of psychological safety again. They really help people to be able to be who they are and to bring their cultural heritage with them, and to not have to erase any part of who they are and their beliefs. So I think when they feel welcomed, and when each member of your team and employee in your company feels welcomed and valued for their background, their heritage, there is so often, and I think I'd dare to say, 90% of the time, positive outcomes. If people feel that they can be who they are. And I think that cultural element, and it's interesting, you'll probably recall from the course, that there was one of the myths was, does it mean that if you're well traveled, you are, culturally competent? And I think you can have elements of cultural competency, but actually your cultural intelligence is also very much, how do you put all your learnings into action? How do you change your behaviors when you are dealing with people of a different culture? And there's always a little bit that debate of code switching, and is code switching changing who you are? And I really don't think it is. I think code switching is a clever ability, is a great ability to be able to respond to a culturally different situation, or culturally complex situation, with respect and knowledge and acumen and understanding and reading nuances, which can only lead to better outcomes. The respect of someone else's background, culture, heritage, etc., ethnicity, and all the things that make up the culture, because we know that it's not just one element, can only lead to something positive. And actually the sort of ignoring of that is very damaging. And I think that's when teams don't work cohesively together, or you could risk blowing a business deal You know, if you're not aware, and I think it's very valuable in multicultural teams, and as I said, domestically and internationally, and certainly with you know, sort of commercial sales, business development type teams, where that's what you do. You know, you talk to clients from other cultures, and you could really put a foot wrong, or you could really show huge disrespect without knowing, that could either slow down something or actually end it. Yeah. So I think that's why I feel it's really important. But I like the fact that it's a skill. Yeah. That it's something that you can develop. And again, it's about you. If you work at it, you'll get better at it. Yeah. And if you get better at it, you will be more culturally aware and culturally smart. And you'll be able to navigate those situations better. And when you have seamless transitions into things and respect, I feel in any relationship, and I mean, I know we looked at it in our course in the context of work. And actually, in your everyday, you know, we also are humans outside of work, yes, who interact in culturally different situations. So absolutely. I think it's a skill that is, it's a skill for life. It's not just a skill for work.
Absolutely. And I think a lot of what you say, it's around application, isn't it, really, and having that in your toolbox as a skill to be able to anticipate, to be able to navigate, and you know, and to have successful outcomes as well. And what I particularly like is that it's a skill to be learned. I've talked to other people about these things, and it's the potential, isn't there, to actually do something positive, and you know, that actually brings benefit to you, both you personally and also potentially to your workplace, you know, your environment, to your community, whatever, and to actually see those benefits in your own, how you feel, in your sort of like being authentic and be able to operate authentically, and also for your teams and for your organizations, etc., 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 which is all good, I think. Would you?
Yeah. Yes, absolutely.
So how so I know that you work with organizations. What are the sort of things that you're offering around cultural intelligence, and why would people think, oh yeah, that's something that I need to be thinking about in my organization?
So I mean, the offer can really be tailor-made to what people need, the number of delegates that they'd like, but the offer is, rather, it's an invitation. Yes. You know, do you want your teams to be able to be effective in culturally different situations, or do you yourself want to be effective or not? You know, it sounds so simplistic, but you know, I do think about it a little bit. We've come to a stage where I think there are some things in business practices that you can't ignore any longer. And the fact that the world is actually increasingly connected means that, and because of hybrid working and new different ways of working, you will encounter culturally different, potentially challenging or uncomfortable, or you know, they can be many things, but you will come across them when you're doing business, or you will come across them if you have a new team member, or if you're the new team member. There will be situations in which you will need that skill. So I guess the offer and the invitation, and I like to think about it a little bit like, you know, do you want to be the dinosaur and the meteor is coming at you, or do you want to evolve? So it is about, it's also about business is changing, the requirements are changing, and the landscape is changing. And one of the requirements is to be able to interact better with others. And the cultural element of that is key. And I think also, you know, one of the interesting things is you can also have company cultures. So if you think of mergers and acquisitions, has your company been recently acquired, and is that culture in that company the same as the one that you will bring, you know, the one that you have? And how do you get people to work well together when actually there is that us and them feeling, or the culture is very different? You know, it's very much, in essence, it's about good relationships and collaboration. And why wouldn't you I always think, oh, lots of people always answer a question with a question, but actually, I'm going to do that today.
Yes.
Why wouldn't
Why
you?
wouldn't you? I
Why
love that.
wouldn't you?
Yeah, I love that. And how can people hear about you, get in touch with you, really interested in this subject? How can people get hold of you?
Through my website, which is www.culturalnexus.co.uk, and all through LinkedIn. Most of my connections come via LinkedIn. Private messages on there, and on my company LinkedIn page, there are all my details there as well. So
Brilliant. And we'll put all of that into the show notes. I'm going to slightly change tack. And so that was a really, really interesting conversation, and it will probably come back in, because I'm going to talk about, first of all, I'm going to talk about your favorite book. I ask all of my guests if they've got a book that they would like to talk about and why they like it.
I do. So it's very hard, actually. When I sort of you asked that question, I was thinking, oh gosh, there's so many for lots of different reasons.
Absolutely.
But I'd say Caroline Criado Perez's book, Invisible Women, is one that I read through the first part of the pandemic, and it had never occurred to me just how much how much by design things can be non-inclusive. And I'd say she's definitely a feminist, but I think but everything is backed by data.
Yeah.
When it's not just anger and frustration about how things are designed for particular genders, and also for the average XYZ, but it's very much also looking at history, through history. How have crash test dummies always been, how do we design things like that, which are meant to be used by anybody, but actually have been designed by a particular type for a particular standard type. Now, I think that's also something to do with health, matter of safety. Crash test dummies that maybe initially didn't account for pregnant women, or or people with dwarfism, or people of not the average height, or anything like that. And so I think it's really interesting how she unpicks some of the things, and it's the same as if you have, again, a homogenous team, and when they're designing something or proposing something, it will be usable by only a certain amount of people, or it will be applicable to only certain. So again, if you have that diversity, by the time you present an idea, a product, a piece of consultancy to the market which is diverse, it will have already gone through that sort of element of internal challenge by those different perspectives. So I think when you present something with different perspectives, or created with different perspectives outwardly, it's more resilient.
Absolutely.
And I like how she tells the story. It's very, and it's interesting. And I'd say anybody would be, a great reader. It's applicable. Yes, it's written about gender bias, but actually, I bought the book for many male friends that I have, because I think it's absolutely important. And that's also where, and I'm slightly going to go on a mini tangent, but that's where you also get allyship.
Yes.
It's a book written by a woman talking about gender stereotypes, but we all need to know about this, because it benefits everybody to be exposed to diversity, and allyship can only come with information.
Love that. That's really, really good. And I think there might be a view that it doesn't affect me, so I don't need to read it, I don't need to learn about it. But I think that's one of the great things about education, isn't it, and training. And you can get a different perspective, which is what we talked about at the beginning, isn't it, really, by sort of like hearing different perspectives. It makes you feel differently about how you view the world. And sort of like the example you used about crash test dummies, there's lots of examples in healthcare around biomedical engineered products that are tested on the average white man, and they might not be suitable for different heritages or different genders, like you say. So there's a lot to learn there, isn't there? So that's all useful, definitely. Right, so Cecilia, I also ask all of my guests 2 questions, which is back to sort of my healthcare background. And the first is, how do you stay focused, positive, productive? Because I know that you've done a lot of things. You've got your own business. I know that you have a family, and that you're sorting it all out, basically. So how do you stay focused, positive, and productive? And then the sort of like additional question, but it can be combined, is how do you maintain your own health and well-being while you're doing all the things?
Well, I will take that offering of combining, because I was going to say, I think that the pandemic has done different things to different people, and actually in that I also suffered a loss, and I think there are things that you need to make time for. You need to carve out time for your mental well-being, very much so, but also for your physical well-being. I think they're linked. So how you feel about yourself, what you eat, whether you're getting enough sleep, etc., etc. So I put in as much effort as I can, and I certainly haven't mastered it, and I'm not perfect at it, to carve out that time. And I think sort of to stay focused and positive is take regular breaks, and try and interval screen time with physical exercise, even if it's just go downstairs, change the scenery, make a cup of tea, 5 minutes, back. Lunchtime walks are a great favorite. And I think what I would say, if many people are sort of working from home majority of the time, and you don't have to view anything on a screen when you're in a meeting, have a walking meeting. Plug yourself in, it's on your phone, have a meeting while you're talking, because that's what you would be doing. And you might not see the person, or I mean, you could be in a video chat, but I think take those opportunities to also change your scenery. I think that's really important. But I would definitely say make the time. I think that's the only way that I've probably managed to stay safe. And physical exercise, I must say. I have a group of friends with whom I ran my way out of the pandemic, and I hate running, absolutely hate running, but I took it up because it was therapeutic. And we are not sort of marathon runners or anything like that, but it was a lot of chatting, a lot of moaning, a lot of letting off steam, and doing physical. So it was, and it really that did keep me sane.
Lovely. That's grand. That's really, really good. We've come to the end of our chat. It's been absolutely fantastic talking to you and hearing about the things you're doing and your perspectives on things. Another thing that I ask my guests is there anything, I know that's 3 things, isn't it? Is there sort of like one tip or sort of working knowledge or something that you can leave with the audience that they can take away with them?
Be curious.
Love it.
Yeah, I would say be curious and be excited about unlearning something old and learning about something new.
Yeah, definitely. Love that. Thank you so much, Cecilia. It's been
Thank you for having me.
Absolute pleasure having you here. And that's it for the Dawn Jarvis show today. Another good one. If you like what you heard, I'd like you to share, subscribe, and definitely would love to know what you think in the comments. And we will see you again really, really soon. Take care and bye-bye.